On Fast, Loud, and Rude, we have Kirth Roth from Seattle. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really good. So, tell me a little bit about Kirth Roth and what the history of this project is and how it got started.
So basically, the history of Kirth Roth is something that I started to do after I found that it was really hard to find like-minded musicians around the area. So I decided to just, you know what, I can do everything myself. So I sat down and just started rewriting and recording, and that's pretty much the birth of Kirth Roth.
And you have two albums out now, right?
Yes, I do.
And
hmm
I always ask everybody this, but what got you into metal?
What got me into metal?
Yeah.
What got me into it all really just started with of course Iron Maiden. You know, I was like maybe 8, 9, and that started there, and then it fumbled into I came across Cradle of Filth. I don't know how that happened, kind of skipped everybody else in between, and then it went straight to Dark Throne after that. And
Okay.
then I was just hooked ever since. So it got darker as I got older. So
I,
that's kind of how that happened.
Creative of Filth is like the bridge between like,
hmm
oh, I like this kind of borderline hard rock metal stuff to like, oh, I think I like this really weird stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
because usually it goes like Megadeth to Venom, and then
hmm.
Venom to like Dark Throne and Burbism and Bathory, but then I just skipped all that and went straight after Cradle of Filth.
Yeah, I'm more of the Megadeth to Venom kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, which
And
is cool. Which is cool.
I remember seeing stuff that was on like VH1 Classic about the Mayhem murders and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
And that
yeah.
got me pretty fascinated with the whole thing. And
Mm.
why the ambient black metal? What kind of got you in that direction?
I've always was a little bit more into that whole just thing. I like the sound of it. I mean, I like getting, the whole cliche, getting lost in the woods and just listening to what Mother Nature is about and just kind of just went from there. That's why. But I've been getting a lot more requests for my raw metal, the raw black metal. And so I'm going to go in that direction.
Yeah, well, I saw some of your clips on your personal YouTube page, and some of your drumming stuff is really, really impressive.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, what are some big influences on your band?
Well, I really like Leviathan from Jeff Whitehead. I really love his writing. Um, I've always been fascinated with him. I really like Sargeist. Satanic Black Devotion. I really love that album. And then of course Inquisition and Azagrim. I can never say them properly, but those bands, yeah, I always have a hard time. And
Some of them are really hard. I'm not gonna
I
lie.
even watched that. I even watched an interview, cut a couple of interviews of Azagrim with Obscura, and I still can't say it properly. And she's Dutch, right? And
Hmm.
I still can't do it. But those are the bands that really got me into it. And two of them are, one man black metal bands. And I liked them, and then they really inspired me to do this as well. So
Oh, that's really cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I've always liked, like Berzoom, I think is like the first of the one man black metal projects.
Mm,
And I've always thought that that was kind of a cool thing that was accepted in that subgenre. The
yeah.
idea of like just one person doing all the recording. I always thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, especially it's pretty neat what he did with the tape recorder and how he like had to record his double beating because he didn't have a double pedal back then. So he had to like do it in a way where he would record with one and then double over with the other one. It
Oh
was
wow, I
really
actually didn't
crazy.
know that.
Yeah, it's really crazy how he recorded his double pedaling. Yeah, it was really
Wow.
interesting. It was very interesting. Yeah.
That is fascinating,
Yeah.
especially because on the first one, he uses a lot of those like blasts and stuff.
Mm,
It's kind of fascinating to think about
yeah.
him having to do only one pedal and then the other
Yeah.
one.
As he got, more into it, his kit grew and things like that. But I dived really into him and I got to see a lot of interviews and things like that, going down the archive. And plus, one of my labels, I'm not going to name drop, but one of my labels, they were really into that. They grew up in that era, so they knew a lot of that stuff too. Like, hey, I know somebody who knew somebody or knew somebody. And so they told me stories. So it was pretty cool.
That's really cool. Yeah, every once in a while I'll throw on like Ea Lord of Depths and just that guitar line, just
Mhm. Yeah,
yeah, it's so catchy in such a dark, evil way. I love that.
yeah. He's a cool guy.
Let's talk about A Witch's Last Hour and what was your big inspiration? Because what I noticed when I listened to it is it's definitely telling a what seems like a particular story. And what was kind of the inspiration for that?
So I am a descendant. I have a grandmother that was on the Salem witch trials. So that was a big inspiration right there. So basically, it's a story of a witch that, well, of a woman that was, she was condemned being a witch. She's being hung and she's telling a story. And so
Okay.
she's telling the story why she's being hung. So that's why my voice is very raspy, but you can still hear what I'm saying. Because she's, as the noose goes tighter, she's losing her voice. So she's basically saying, hey, this is what your Christianity has done to me. And so it's like, hey, this is what's up.
Oh, that's
So
pretty fascinating.
that's the story.
Was your ancestor one of the people who were killed, or were they
Yes,
just involved? Oh,
she was
okay.
hung. Yeah, her name was Margaret Scott. She's my ninth generation great grandmother.
Wow, okay. And that's a pretty fascinating story just in general. I mean, I definitely noticed that one of the songs is named after Bridget Bishop,
Hmm.
who was kind of considered the ringleader of the whole thing.
Oh
If
yeah,
if a ringleader would even exist in something that, who knows if the whole thing was fictitious or if they were, you know, practicing witchcraft or whatever. I don't think they deserve to die either way.
no.
But no matter what the truth of it was, um, she was kind of the center character in the whole thing.
Well, yeah, because she owned the two taverns, and a lot of the wives of the husbands were always really like, oh my God, she's taking all of our men. She must have some kind of witchcraft or voodoo or whatever they said back then. And it's like, that wasn't the case. She was a hard worker. She knew how to get money because she was just like everybody else, had to pay her bills, had to pay her taxes. So, but yeah, she was just condemned, and that was it. And it was a really sad story. So,
Yeah, and I even read something once because my brother was in a play about this called The Crucible,
mhm.
and so I read quite a bit about it. And I even read an account that said that she wasn't even really like didn't know those people.
Mm-mm.
Like she might have been in like a slightly different town, kind of away from theirs, and maybe all these guys who went through the town just kind of had the hots for her, and that's
Yeah.
how this whole thing happened.
Yeah.
And because one of the things that she said when she was on trial was she didn't even know those freaking people.
Yeah.
Like,
A lot of them didn't. A lot of them didn't even know anything about, like, Margaret Scott. She was not even actually in Salem. She was on a farm on Rulable or whatever. It's an R word. She wasn't even around anybody.
yeah.
So it was like, are you serious? So yeah, it's just the whole concept is just so sad if you really dive into it. It's horrible what they went through.
Well, and
So
I so that's so interesting because that was one of the things I was going to ask you about was the
mhm.
spoken word vocals and how they seem to get quieter
Mhm.
as the album goes on. And so that was a specific artistic choice of yours.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because when I would read, all the stuff, all the history and all through my research, when you're just having to realize their pain and their suffering and when they're getting hung, it's like, wow, wouldn't that be an interesting tale to tell? Being like, hey, this is what you did to me and this is how it looks and this is what it sounds like. And that's kind of where I went there. People say it's morbid, but that's okay.
Well, and I don't even know if in the 1600s they used proper gallows. I think they might have
No.
just strangled people,
Mhm.
essentially like a lynching. I don't think it was like they dropped you and broke your neck like they did in the 1800s.
Yeah.
So the whole idea is frankly horrifying,
Oh
honestly.
yeah. It's just yeah, it's really it's just it's something that it's hard to swallow, really, if you think
Yeah.
about it. Just
Yeah,
what they
absolutely.
went through. And so, but yeah, that was the whole point of making this latest record is I wanted her to be saying the stories like she was getting, hung or strangled, whichever you prefer, but I wanted that sound.
Yeah, and kind of embodying the experience of your ancestor. I think that's pretty
Hmm.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things I definitely noticed on it too, production wise, is a purposeful inconsistency.
Hmm.
And that's definitely been something that's been kind of a style with black metal in general. And some of the tracks, the drums are pretty loud and fairly clear. Some of
Hmm.
them, they're really quiet. How
Hmm.
did you kind of do that? Was it just about messing with input gains and stuff like that? Because I found that pretty interesting.
A lot of it was just messing around with the input gains because sometimes, my fast drumming, what is it, double pedaling is too loud than all the rest of the kit. And yeah, it's very difficult when you're messing with studio type gear, especially when you
Mm,
have like electronic things you got to deal with. And so, yeah, that was basically was messing around things, but I just thought it was cool because it fit the song.
yeah, absolutely. I
So,
definitely think it gives each song its own vibe.
right.
And another part of that was the guitar tones. And I was kind of curious what kind of guitar you use, and then how did you get some of the tones that you used on this record?
Okay, well, sit back. Everybody's probably gonna laugh on this one. I basically use just a headset microphone, and
Oh
I hook it
wow.
up to my amp, and I just rock it. That's all I do.
Oh wow. And what
Yeah.
kind of what kind of amp do you use?
It's all of it is an ampliphone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Like a
everything
little
is it. Yeah,
15-watt kind of
yeah.
deal.
That's all. Yeah, that's all I do. And I did both my albums on it, and sounds great.
And you just adjust the gain on some of those. And
No, what I do is I just go through my program, and then I
okay.
put reverb on it, and then that's all I do.
Okay, because what I was curious about was on Bridget Bishop, it's a much louder guitar sound
Hmm.
than on some of the other ones. And so that's what I was kind of curious about was what you were changing as far as that. But it might have just literally been the levels in your software, huh?
Yep, the levels in the software, and then click on that reverb. That reverb button is crazy. It makes a lot of different sounds. Like when you
Yeah.
record it and you push that reverb button, it's a whole new other world. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's where that comes from.
Yeah, I've had that experience too. The reverb that comes on like a computer software is
Hmm.
totally different than like a reverb from an amplifier. It's really,
Yeah,
really wild. Like I don't really know how to use it yet for mine. I'm a little
yeah,
scared. Like every time
yeah,
I try it, I'm like, that's a lot of reverb.
yeah. It's definitely hard to like dial it in sometimes, but for the album it just fits because once you push play and you get through the whole album it just sounds good. It fits.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I definitely thought it gave it like a very echoey kind of aspect to it. And I've always thought that fit that kind of atmospheric black metal style really well.
yeah, I agree.
And what kind of guitar were you using?
It's a generic it's a Les Paul Epiphone. It's the series 2.
Okay, with
So
the humbuckers or with the P90s?
with the humbuckers.
Okay, okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was just curious because I've seen some people use like the P90 equipped ones to try to
Hmm.
get like a guess like a whinier kind of sound.
Yeah.
But I'm just always curious about people's guitar production.
No, I don't mind sharing. Yeah, it's very like people go like, "Oh my God, you actually record all that on that guitar?" And it's like, "Yeah, I do."
Yeah.
And they just don't believe me. And they're like, "Well, how do you make it sound the way you do?" It's like, I put it in there and I push buttons and voila.
Well, and for the black metal thing, when you're going for like a purposefully not very nice tone,
Mm.
honestly, a lot of those old practice amps would be perfect for that.
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
works really well.
I think I've got one that's like a Squire 10 watt that when you push the gain button, it's still clean. It just has a lot of fuzz behind the clean. So
Right.
stuff like
Right.
that might be pretty fascinating, actually.
Yeah, so it's really cool. And I mean, I'm not against anybody that has a high tech, high end, equipment. I think it's awesome, but I mean, it's just music, guys. Play
Yeah.
from what's in. That's all I gotta say.
Well, and it fits your artistic vision really well.
It does.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, so what are your future plans for recording more music, having a larger project in general? Is there anything with that?
The only thing that's really in the works in the history of Kirth Roth is I'm just going to continue it being a one woman black metal band. I am like we were discussing earlier. I am going to go more raw with it. I just think I think it really just grabs who I am as a musician, because like you hear so much computerized,
Yeah.
studio albums nowadays. And sometimes it's just hard for me to listen to it. I mean, it's great, but it just sounds so tinny. It sounds robotic. Even though
Yeah.
you could see a human doing it, it just sounds too robotic. And so that's what I want to go with Kurth Roth and just make it more raw.
Yeah, and even with the other like subgenres, I definitely feel like there's this line that you can cross where something quickly becomes overproduced. Like I
Right.
think I think even if you're trying to do like thrash and it's trying to be a big wall of sound, like you
Hmm.
don't want it to be too good of production. It takes
No.
away from what it's supposed to be as far as being the metal genre. And yeah, I would love to hear your raw black metal stuff because I think like I said, I watched your videos with the drumming. You're pretty freaking good. Like,
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I just I once did, like, I'm not going to name drop, but I once did try to do Kurth Roth live. But
mhm,
unfortunately, there are just some individuals who are musicians that just don't play well with others.
yeah,
So I had to like end that. And but normally, trying to be a girl within this black metal, community, you do get frowned upon. You do. And I'm not gonna lie, and me being a drummer mainly, guys get a little tentative and they just don't want to play with a girl. And that's fine, Sometimes I've gotten, well, you're better than my drummer. Sorry. just,
yeah,
just happens. But that's why a lot of it, I just went, you know what, regardless, I don't care what you guys think or what you feel. I mean, I'm willing to play with other musicians who are just not really wanting to be in my sandbox. So that's why I'm just going to continue Cussbox being me.
yeah. And I was kind of curious about both of those things, which is how you feel as a female in a scene that no matter what subgenre is very male dominated, and also about the playing live thing. Both of those I was pretty curious about. And for you, have you felt fairly unwelcome as far as being a woman in the metal scene, or is it mostly with the black metal guys?
Well, well, kind of keep the story short. I do live in the Roseburg area of Oregon.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't correct you, but it's cool. But I do live there and are here. And the local metal scene here is very just not really welcoming to women.
Yeah.
They're just not, and everybody knows it. I've just went, you know what? I'm just gonna do it with me. And but I get out there with my project and people just get they seem like they're just jealous because I'm on two record labels. I've had international airplay. I've had several different interviews. I've been in magazines with Kirth Roth. And they're like, and I'm like, what the hell have you done lately? And they're like, well, I just play here. Well, okay,
Yeah.
do something. And so I think they're more intimidated just because not because I'm a woman, it's because I get crap done. I just go in there and I grab it because I want it. And so they don't really like playing with me. And I've been told more than one account that I'm better than their drummer and they don't like the fact that I'm a girl. And but on the outside of this area, I I've had nothing but amazing support from black metal men and women, death metal, metal in general. I've had amazing experiences.
Well, that's really great to hear.
Yeah.
I mean, that's I love the positive note there.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about like trying to find some people more online and trying to do like a live performance and maybe like in Portland or Seattle where people might be more receptive?
I mean, I would love to. I do have a couple of people that I do know up in the Portland area that we had kind of, messed around with the idea of doing something like that. And of course, I'll be the drummer. And yeah, I'm totally down with doing that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, awesome.
I've been
If that ever comes together, keep me in the loop. I'd come and watch you.
Yeah, because I've been on guest appearance on different albums, especially with the labels. I've done a lot of guest appearances, but yeah, if I did do something like that and we were able to do live, absolutely, and I'll tell you all about it.
Cool. Well, alrighty. The band is Kirth Roth. They are not from Seattle. They are from Roseburg, Oregon. And thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.